You see, every woman has heard it before: you're beautiful, you look stunning, you're so hot. And while those words might spark a quick smile, they don't last, they don't sink, they don't reach the places within her that crave something deeper. Because true intimacy isn't built by admiring what's on the surface, it's built by witnessing the layers that most people miss. A woman begins to fall when she feels seen, not scanned, not admired from a distance. Seen, and there's a massive difference between saying you're pretty and saying there's a calm in your presence that makes everything around you feel more peaceful. One scratches the surface, the other touches her identity. When you compliment a woman in a way that reveals you've taken the time to notice, to observe who she is beneath the image, that's when something real begins to stir in her. Because the truth is, so many women walk through life being visually praised, but emotionally invisible. They're complimented for their makeup, their curves, their outfits. But what about her kindness? What about the way her voice softens when she's trying to comfort someone? What about the little quirks in her laugh that reveal she's still a girl at heart? She wants to be noticed for what isn't obvious. She wants someone to recognize the strength she carries without always needing to say she's strong. She wants a man who tells her, "I love how your presence shifts the energy in the room," rather than just, "You look good tonight." Because one of those compliments celebrates who she is without effort, not just what she presents after she's done her hair, put on her heels, and stepped out into the world. And when a man speaks to her soul like that, it disrupts her pattern. It makes her pause. It makes her feel safe. It makes her feel seen in a way that even she might not have fully seen herself. That's the power of a compliment that goes beyond the physical. It reflects a man who pays attention, not just a man who reacts. And let's be real, when a woman feels genuinely seen, she blossoms, not because your words gave her worth, but because they reminded her that she was always worthy, beyond the role she plays, beyond the image she presents, beyond the beauty that fades with time. She's reminded that she's felt, not just looked at, and that, more than diamonds, more than dates, more than romantic gestures, is what opens her heart. It's not about crafting perfect poetic phrases. It's about choosing honesty over generic compliments. It's telling her, "I love how you light up when you talk about the things you care about." Or, "There's something in your eyes that tells me you carry so much more wisdom than you let on." Those are the words that don't just flatter, they validate. They don't just impress, they connect. And what's beautiful about this kind of compliment is that it requires presence. It means you've slowed down enough to notice the her beyond the external, the woman who's still healing, the woman who doubts herself at night, the woman who secretly wonders if anyone will ever understand the depth of what she feels. When you speak to that part of her, you don't just create attraction, you create trust. And trust, my friend, is the soil where real love begins to grow. So the next time you're tempted to compliment her beauty, pause and look deeper. Ask yourself, what do I see in her that most people overlook? What do I feel when I'm around her that has nothing to do with her looks? Because when your words become mirrors for her deeper worth, you give her something rare, something lasting, something unforgettable. The right compliment doesn't just describe her, it awakens her. There's something deeply attractive about a woman who owns her mind, the way she thinks, processes, questions, imagines. It's not just intelligence, it's presence. And when you compliment that presence without trying to overshadow it, you open the door to something far more intimate than admiration. You create a space where she can be both brilliant and feminine without feeling the need to choose one over the other. Too often, a woman's intelligence gets treated like a challenge, like something to compete with or prove wrong. But when you truly respect her mind, you don't argue to win, you listen to understand. You don't shrink when she has a sharper insight, you expand because you value it. And the truth is, she notices. She knows the difference between a man who's quietly intimidated and one who's genuinely inspired. When you tell a woman, "I admire how you think," you're not just complimenting her intellect. You're giving her permission to be seen beyond her body, beyond her smile, beyond what the world typically praises. You're telling her, I'm here for you, all of you, even the parts the world tells you to tone down. She remembers the man who said, "That's a powerful perspective. You always make me think differently," because it's rare, it's disarming, it's attractive in a way that goes beyond charm and touches her need to feel emotionally safe in her intelligence. When she realizes you're not competing, but collaborating, she leans in, not because she wants approval, but because she finally feels respected. It's a compliment that goes deeper than academics or facts. It's about recognizing the way she analyzes people with compassion, how she finds patterns in things others overlook, or how she's thoughtful before she speaks. You could say something as simple as, "I love how curious you are. You never stop learning." And those words become a mirror she didn't even know she needed. When a woman has had to fight to be taken seriously, your acknowledgement of her intelligence without trying to one up her feels like a breath of fresh air. You become the man who doesn't just accept her strength, you celebrate it. And in a world where many are trying to dim each other just to feel seen, that celebration is magnetic. And here's what most men don't realize. When a woman feels intellectually respected, her emotional guard begins to lower. Because she knows she doesn't have to shrink. She doesn't have to soften her words just to make you feel more manly. She can show up fully, freely, and that freedom makes her feel safe enough to connect in a way that's honest, unfiltered, and rare. But the compliment has to be sincere. Don't throw around phrases like, "You're smart," just to check a box. Pay attention. Notice the nuance in her thinking, the depth in her questions, the sharpness in her logic. Then tell her what you see, not to impress her, but because it's real. Because you're not trying to win a debate, you're trying to understand her world. And when you do that, something shifts, the dynamic changes. She stops feeling like she has to prove herself and starts relaxing into who she is. And that's where intimacy grows. In the moments where masks drop, egos step aside, and mutual respect fills the space. So the next time she's sharing her thoughts, don't just nod, lean in, get curious. Let her know you're not just listening to respond. You're listening to learn, because a woman will give her heart to the man who makes her feel like her mind is safe, that her ideas are valued, that her wisdom is not only noticed, but cherished. Remember, the way to her heart isn't just through praise, it's through presence. And when your presence tells her, "Your thoughts matter to me," you give her something far more intimate than attention. You give her honor. There's a kind of love that doesn't just show up when the lights are on and everything looks perfect. It shows up in the background, in the quiet places most people overlook. That's the kind of love she longs for. Not the kind that waits to applaud her when she crosses the finish line, but the kind that sees her when she's still running, still trying, still holding it all together. Because for so many women, the weight of effort is carried in silence. She's been celebrated for the things she's achieved, the degrees, the promotions, the milestones, but those are just the visible markers. What often goes unseen is the emotional labor, the sleepless nights, the moments she chose patience when she wanted to scream, the way she shows up for everyone else even when she feels completely empty inside. That's the part of her story that deserves to be acknowledged, not just the outcome, but the heart it took to get there. When you say, "I see how hard you're working," even when no one else does, something in her softens, because in that moment, you're not just admiring her strength, you're honoring her humanity. You're letting her know she doesn't have to keep proving herself to be loved. That you're not only here for the version of her that has it all together, you're here for the one who's still in the process. And that's where real connection lives, in the spaces where she feels safe to not be perfect, where she knows she can let her shoulders drop and breathe around you. When you acknowledge the effort, the process, You create intimacy that lasts longer than compliments about success. You make her feel held, not just noticed. Because the truth is, every woman wants to be recognized not just for the final product, but for the moments she chose courage over comfort, for the times she stayed when it would have been easier to walk away, for the way she keeps showing up even when her heart is tired. That kind of recognition isn't loud, it's not flashy, but it's unforgettable, and sometimes it sounds like, "I saw the way you handled that situation today. You were so composed even though I know it wasn't easy." Or maybe it's, "I know you've been carrying a lot lately. I just want you to know I admire your resilience. These aren't grand gestures, they're grounded words. They come from a place of paying attention, not just to what she does, but to what it costs her to do it." A woman falls for the man who doesn't just praise the result, but respects the road it took to get there. The man who notices the invisible things, the daily things, the things she stopped expecting anyone to care about. And when you become that man, she doesn't just feel loved, she feels safe. And when a woman feels safe, she opens in ways that are rare, beautiful, and deeply intimate. So many people look at her life and only see what's on display. But if you want to be the one she remembers, be the one who looks deeper. Be the one who says, "You don't have to be perfect for me to appreciate you." Be the one who notices her on the days she doubts herself, on the days she doesn't hear applause, on the days she's simply trying to make it through without falling apart. That's when your words matter most, not when she's shining, but when she's stretched. Because that's when she realizes your love isn't conditional. It's consistent, and that consistency, that's what builds trust. That's what makes her feel like she can finally exhale and just be. Because in the end, it's not just about telling her she's amazing. It's about seeing her when no one else is watching and still choosing to honor the effort it takes to be her. Some of the most powerful words a woman can ever hear are not about how she looks, or even what she's done, but how she's changed you, how her presence has touched something in you that maybe even you didn't know was there, because real intimacy is born in vulnerability, and when a man is willing to say, "You impact me," he's no longer just admiring her, he's connecting with her. So often, women are taught to be the nurturers, the healers, the emotional anchors, and they pour so much of themselves into others, into their relationships, their families, their friendships, without ever knowing if it's seen, if it lands, if it truly matters. But when you look her in the eye and say something as simple as, "You make me feel like I'm becoming a better man," everything shifts. You're not just appreciating her, you're revealing her value, because here's the thing, impact is deeply personal. It doesn't have to be big or dramatic. Sometimes it's just the way she challenges your thinking without judging it, the way she holds space for your emotions without trying to fix them, the way she encourages your growth not with pressure, but with quiet belief. And when you let her know what that means to you, when you reflect that back to her, you give her a gift she rarely receives, proof that who she is matters. So many women walk through life wondering if their presence even makes a difference. They give so much of themselves away that they forget what it feels like to receive, to hear, without asking, "You've changed me in ways I didn't expect." That's the kind of compliment that stays with her. Long after the night is over, long after the words are said, she'll remember how it felt to be told she matters not just for what she does, but for who she is when she shows up. And it doesn't have to be poetic. It just has to be real. Maybe you say, "You've helped me see the world in softer colors." Or, "I don't carry things alone the way I used to, and I think that's because of you." Maybe it's even, "You make me believe that love doesn't have to feel like war." Words like that. They don't just flatter her, they ground her. They let her know her emotional investment in you hasn't gone unnoticed. Because when you speak to her impact, you're not just reflecting who she is. You're honoring who you're becoming because of her. That's what makes her feel chosen, not just liked, not just loved, chosen. And for a woman who's been strong for everyone else, that feeling is everything. There's a beauty in letting her know that her presence brings peace to your chaos or clarity to your confusion. That the way she listens makes you want to be more honest, that just knowing she believes in you makes you walk a little taller. These aren't compliments she's fishing for, but when they come from a place of truth, they disarm her. They reach the parts of her heart that no one usually talks to. A woman doesn't fall in love because you say the right words. She falls when she feels felt, and when you express her impact on your inner world, you're not just describing her, you're inviting her deeper into your story. And intimacy, real intimacy, is built in those moments of emotional transparency. When your guard is down and your heart is open enough to say, "You've touched something in me I didn't even know was waiting to be touched." So if you want to compliment her in a way that leaves a mark, don't just talk about what she is. Talk about what she does to you, who you become in her presence, what parts of yourself are healing just because she's there. That's not just romance, that's reverence, and the truth is, when a woman feels like her love, her light, her energy moves you, that's when she lets you in, because she doesn't just want to be admired. She wants to be felt. And when your words reflect her power to influence the man you are, she doesn't just hear them, she believes them. Some of the most profound compliments you can give a woman are the ones she never asks for, the ones that recognize the strength she doesn't talk about. The strength she carries in silence, the kind that doesn't show up in titles or loud declarations, but in the way she keeps going when no one claps, the way she chooses grace when life gives her chaos, the way she holds herself together, not for praise, but because falling apart simply isn't an option. You see, there's a part of her story that even her closest friends may not fully know. The quiet battles she's fought, the moments where she cried in the shower and still walked out smiling, the times she wanted to give up but didn't, and she's not asking for sympathy. She doesn't need saving, but what she does need, what every woman needs, is to be seen in those unspoken places. To be reminded that her strength isn't invisible, that someone notices, that someone gets it, and when you're that man, when you reflect her unspoken strength back to her, you don't just compliment her, you validate her. You let her know she's not carrying all that weight unnoticed, that the resilience she's built, the emotional endurance she's developed, it doesn't go unseen. You might say something like, "I can tell you've been through a lot, but you carry it with so much grace." And suddenly, she feels understood without having to explain herself. That kind of compliment goes deeper than surface-level admiration. It reaches the core of who she is. It touches the version of her that got back up when no one was watching. The part of her that has mastered how to be soft and strong at the same time. And when you reflect that back to her, without judgment, without expectation, you're giving her something sacred recognition. Because she's been told to be strong her whole life, but rarely has anyone paused to say, "I see how much strength that's taken." There's a power in naming what she doesn't say out loud, in recognizing the battles she's learned to hide behind her laughter. And you don't have to know every detail, you just have to care enough to notice what others miss. She may not talk about the childhood that forced her to grow up too fast, or the heartbreaks that taught her how to build walls without seeming guarded, or the way she holds space for everyone else, even when no one asks how she's doing. But if you pay attention, you'll see it. In her eyes, in her pauses, in the way she changes the subject when things get too close. And that's where you speak life into her, not by prying, but by honoring her quiet power. Say something like, "You have a strength that doesn't need to speak loudly, but it's always felt," and watch how her body relaxes. Because she didn't even know she needed to hear that. She didn't know someone could see through the polished version of her and still love what's underneath. That's what makes it intimate. That's what makes it unforgettable. The world often tells her she has to be either soft or strong, but you show her that she can be both, and that her balance of the two is breathtaking, and maybe that's the compliment she's been missing all along. Not just you're amazing, but you're powerful in ways you don't even realize, because that's the part of her she questions, that's the part of her that has held her through storms and still wondered, am I enough? When you reflect her unspoken strengths, you answer that question without her having to ask it. You remind her that strength isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes it's showing up with a smile when your soul feels tired. And sometimes it's choosing love again, even after being hurt. And the man who sees that in her, the man who names it, honors it, and loves her more because of it, he becomes more than just another admirer. He becomes the space where she can finally exhale, where she can finally be seen, where she can finally be held. There's something breathtaking about a woman when she stops trying to be anything other than herself. When the filters drop, when the roles fade, and what's left is just her, all real, unpolished, and the truth is, that's when she's most beautiful, not because she's perfect, but because she's honest. That kind of honesty, the kind that shows up with messy hair, tired eyes, quiet fears, and loud dreams, that's the version of her most people never take the time to see. But when you do, when you choose to love that version of her, that's when she starts to trust you with her soul, not just her smile. You see, the world constantly tells her she has to be more composed, more delicate, more poised, more pleasing, and so she builds these versions of herself to fit the expectations. The pretty version, the polite version, the put-together version, but underneath all of that, there's the real her, the one who sometimes laughs too loud, who overthinks everything, who gets anxious for no reason, who's still healing in places she doesn't talk about. And that version craves safety. When you compliment a woman's unfiltered self, you're not just telling her she's enough. You're proving it. You're telling her, you don't have to perform here. You don't have to hide here. You can be you, and I'll still choose you. That's a different kind of intimacy. It's not about attraction anymore. It's about acceptance. And when she feels accepted in the spaces where she once felt ashamed, something in her opens that you can't fake, force, or rush. Tell her, I love when you're just you, the way you are when you're not trying to impress anyone. Say it when her makeup's off, when she's venting about her day, when she's curled up in silence and doesn't have the words to explain what's on her mind. Say it when she's doubting herself, when she's being too honest, too emotional, too sensitive. That's when she needs to hear it the most, not when she's glowing, but when she's vulnerable, not when she's put together, but when she's falling apart in your hands and hoping you won't drop her. Because the truth is, every woman has a side she only shows when she feels safe. And if you've seen that side, you've been given a gift, a version of her that she doesn't offer to everyone, a version that's unguarded, unedited, and unbelievably beautiful in its imperfection. And when you don't flinch, when you don't judge or withdraw, but instead draw closer to her, she begins to believe in something deeper. She begins to believe that love doesn't require a mask. And maybe no one's ever told her that the way she snorts when she laughs is adorable, that the way she loses track of her thoughts when she gets passionate is mesmerizing, that the way she admits her fears without flinching shows more courage than pretending to have it all together ever could. She doesn't need someone to tell her she's perfect. She needs someone who sees her flaws and still finds her irresistible. That kind of compliment doesn't just sit on the surface it sinks. It rewires something inside her. It tells the little girl in her heart that she's safe to come out now, that love doesn't mean pretending, that being seen fully doesn't end in rejection, and that message, that changes everything. Because when a woman feels safe in her unfiltered self, she gives more, loves deeper, trusts stronger, not because you asked her to, but because she wants to, because for the first time, she's not chasing love by becoming someone else. She's receiving it by being exactly who she is. So if you really want to give her a compliment she'll remember, don't wait until she's at her best. Speak life into her at her realest. Choose her when she's not trying to be chosen, because it's easy to love a woman who's shining. But it's unforgettable to love the woman behind the shine,